So, today we're going to be talking about The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. It is a fantasy novel published in 2006, and it is the first novel in its series, lovingly referred to as the Gentleman Bastard series. It gets this name, as Google is, because elite con artists, calling themselves the Gentleman Bastards, rob the rich the city of Camor. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, the setting of this story is the fictional city of Camor, which is based on the late medieval Venice, which is super interesting because all of the fictional languages that are included in this series are a very, very interesting combination of, I believe, Italian, French, and Spanish. So it comes together and creates this beautiful, exotic sort of language. It's great. So it is a fantasy, which means that it does rely on a religious aspect. The religion in this story is also super interesting because it reminds me a lot of ancient religions, but to put it in a more understandable context, if you've ever played or seen or heard of Skyrim, it's kind of like that, where you have different churches for the different gods, and there's several of them, and you have all these different priests that dedicate themselves to these different gods, and everybody believes in all of them, but they heavily rely on like one or two of them kind of thing. It's the same kind of concept in The Lies of Locke Lamora. There are 13 different gods and goddesses in this fictional world. However, most people will only acknowledge 12, and that includes most other priests. And that is because the 13th, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce any of these names correctly, so I'm sorry if I don't. I mean, I've never heard them pronounced. I've only just read them, so that's why. But the 13th god is Perilandro, I think is how you say it, and he is the god for thieves and trickery. So obviously most people probably wouldn't acknowledge that god. However, he is the god that Locke and his friends essentially live their lives under. So let me get to the characters. Of course, you have your main character, Locke Lamora. To give a brief description of him, or at least his sort of personality, he's an orphan, and the book actually starts by explaining kind of where he comes from, kind of sorta. There's this whole community in this world of just orphans that pretty much just live underground. It's dirty, it's gross, these kids don't really learn much other than to steal, and the head of it all, I believe he's called the Thief Maker, he sells problematic children to whomever will take them, and Locke has a history of stealing well. He's very good at it, but stealing from the wrong kinds of people, meaning those who would have power to probably kill the Thief Maker and everybody in the underground. So the Thief Maker's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this anymore. He's going to be somebody else's problem. So he sells Locke to this priest, known as the Eyeless Priest. So it's interesting. This priest, named Chains, stands outside of his church, his building, with a donation bowl, and has chained himself to the building. It's like he's got them around his arms, and it's enough for him to walk outside and walk back inside, but that's it. He can't go anywhere else. And he's eyeless. He supposedly gouged out his own eyeballs. I can't quite remember the message he was trying to send with that, but he's blind, and so it makes people feel sorry for him and for the church. They're always out there giving a lot of money to this church. Well, Chains is not blind. He is probably one of the most intelligent con artists I think I've ever read in a fictional setting, and it's amazing. Those chains that are attached to his arms, he can remove at will anytime he wants. He is not absolutely restrained to this building. He keeps, I believe he keeps a wrap of fabric around his eyes too, to make sure that nobody can tell that he's not blind. And his demeanor is just wildly interesting. He is one of my favorite characters in this book. But anyway, so Locke gets sold to Chains, and Chains then takes him in and actually does like take care of him. There are 2 other children that Chains had purchased from the Thief Maker previously. They are twins. I believe their names are pronounced Callo and Galdo, otherwise known as the Sansa Twins. And they are troublemakers, like insanely, because of course they are. They're twins. So Chains is taking care of these 3 young boys. I believe Locke was like 5 or 6 when he was sold to Chains, so he's like really, really little. But I mean, Locke, all that he knows is steal to feed myself and survive. And because of this, Chains sees potential in him for becoming the next great con artist, essentially. And so he teaches these boys how to read, how to write, how to do math, all of that. And also how to con people out of their money in a way that would help them to not get caught. So here are the gentleman bastards. They learn how to disguise themselves, how to trick people into believing that they are anybody. They could be salesmen for wine. They could be bankers. They could be priests of any one of the other gods or goddesses. Like, they learn how to do any of this. They learn how to farm. They learn how to act. They learn several different languages so that they can pass off being somebody from somewhere else. Like, it's insane. And then, like, later on, they get introduced to another young boy. I believe his name is pronounced Jean, like a kind of like a French sort of sound, because it's spelt like Jean. So I don't, based off of like the other names and languages and all of that, I believe it's pronounced Jean. I don't know. I could be wrong, but to me, he's Jean Tannen. Also an orphan. However, he saw his parents get killed. I can't quite remember what happened. I believe it was a fire had killed his family, and he was the only survivor. And he actually came from a, like, fairly wealthy family, so it was very unfortunate what happened. And I don't quite remember how Chains found him. Small details that I just can't quite remember. But Chains comes across him, brings him in, and is like, alright, here's your new brother. We're gonna teach him how to do everything and whatever. So yeah. And then you are way later introduced to a character they call Bug. They only mention his real name a couple of times, and I can't quite remember it right now, but he is Locke's apprentice. So he shows up more in like the main plot early on than he does back like in the past of these characters. That being said, the main plot of this book is that Locke and the rest of the gentleman bastards, at this point Chains has passed away, but they're continuing on doing what they do, and they plot this elaborate scheme to steal tons and tons and tons of money from this wealthy, powerful couple in this town of Camor. And while they're in the midst of doing this and doing it well, they become tied up in this super wild, murderous revenge plot by this character who calls himself the Grey King. And that's essentially what's going on, like, this whole book. You've got your thieving scheme going on over here, and then all of a sudden this Grey King shows up and starts to ruin, like, everything for everybody, and it's great. And while that main plot is interesting, this book is not written in a linear fashion. I don't think any of these books in this series are, which I love. I can't really explain what it is about it that is so awesome. It paces out the story much better. So instead of like rushing through your main plot where you've got lies and con artists and murder, whatever, you've also got these interludes of chapters that are in between your main chapters that go back and explain a little thing that happens to one of your main characters in the past, whether it be Locke, Jean, whatever. It's usually one of those two that you focus on throughout this story. But with these interludes, you learn important information about these characters or about the city itself that they are in. And it's super interesting how it's written this way, so you're not bogged down by characters explaining things or like just long sections of information that you're like, whatever, I don't really care. This sets it up in a way so that it almost feels episodic, like you're watching a TV series. So you've got like your main plot line that happens for like 2 episodes, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna jump back a while so that whatever happens next will make more sense, if that makes sense. And I love how that's written. Like, for example, it happens like midway through the book, but you get interludes that follow Jean when he's a lot younger and is sent off to this very well-known, essentially leader, but he's well-known for his fighting techniques. And so Chains sends Jean off to apprentice under this man and learn how to fight with swords, knives, whatever. And you get like, I think it's like 2 or 3 interludes explaining this process of Jean learning how to do these things and finding out that he really likes to use hatchets when he fights. And previously to these interludes, you learn that Jean has these hatchets and they're called the Wicked Sisters. And it just, the way it flows and the way it's inserted into the story makes it feel like, oh, okay, so that's where the Wicked Sisters came from. That's pretty cool. That makes sense. And it's just like interludes like that. Another big thing that I really, really, really like about these books is the dialogue. Oh my god, the dialogue is to die for, and like, I mean that. It is so funny how these characters talk to each other, specifically like Chains down to the kids, or Locke and Jean talking to each other. It's amazing. Like, I love it. I wish I would have bookmarked a passage in here. Like, let me just see if I can find something from like Chains or somebody, because it's so funny. Okay, so here's an example of some dialogue between the Thief Maker and Chains when the Thief Maker is trying to convince Chains to buy Locke off of him. The Thief Maker tried to let a vaguely sincere expression scurry onto his face, where it froze in evident discomfort. His shrug was theatrically casual. There are problems with the boy, yes, but the problems are unique to his situation and my care. Were he under yours, I'm sure they would vanish. Oh, you have a magic boy. Why didn't you say so? The priest scratched his forehead beneath the white silk blindfold that covered his eyes. Magnificent! I'll plant him in the fucking ground and grow a vine to an enchanted land beyond the clouds. And if that doesn't tell you the kind of personality that Chains has alone, I don't know what will. I would like to add, though, that there is a lot of adult language and themes in these books. I should probably have said that at the beginning of this video. I mean, it's fiction for adults. That's what it is. But anyway, that was just one example of the dialogue that is in these stories. It gets a lot sillier, a lot funnier. I think I like it so much because these characters are just powerfully sarcastic with each other, and it's just, I love it. I love sarcasm. It's hilarious to me. And then you've got just the descriptions alone. I love how these worlds are described in these books, because it definitely feels like a fantasy in that it takes the time to explain what everything looks like and how magnificent everything is. And I specifically like this because Locke, living a life of an orphan and a thief and a con artist, would think that a lot of things are just beautiful and magnificent. And he acknowledges that a lot of the things that he does not have or does not have access to are very nice, such as the clothing. There's a lot of description of clothing, and I really like that. So you get a lot of specific description of the types of fabric that people are wearing, or the colors. The rich people love the very like deep, vivid colors, and I noticed that like blues and purples and greens are very, very evident. And I mean, like, that makes sense because historically, in reality, those were the kinds of colors that did symbolize wealth. And so those are luxury colors in this universe. But aside from the clothing, we also get like really, really nice, pretty descriptions of landscapes or buildings or things like that. Even in instances where they're in a rougher part of the town where like there's trash or whatever, you still get this really good, wealthy description of what Locke or Jean or the twins or whoever is looking at. So I think there's a scene where Locke and Jean are later attempting to escape a hotel room, like an inn, and they're escaping through a window onto, I believe it's some kind of wooden fixture, and there's like ivy and stuff growing on it, like along the side of the building, but they get stuck like in a window down below. Like there's chaos going on. Some woman is yelling at some man who is also trying to escape out the window, and it's just like this very comical scene where Jean and Locke are yelling at this man to get out of the way, but also yelling at this woman to not get involved, and it's just like a whole big thing. And you can see like everything that's happening. You can see that Locke and Jean are on this precarious wooden ladder that they have decided to climb down on, and it's made out of rotten wood, so it's starting to crumble under them, and they don't have anywhere else to go, but they're like way too high up in the air to just drop. So it's like a nice, good description. Like you can see the whole scene playing out, and I love that. You also get very vivid descriptions of smells or feelings, like touch. Things are very soft or very rough or very wet, and even the air, like you can smell whatever it is that's being described in the book. There's trash, there's very fishy smelling water, things like that. It's just, I don't know, like it's so enveloping. Like you get sucked into this world, and it's, I don't know, I haven't really read a book that's done this for me in a long time. Like I get sucked in so quick when reading these books. And I know being in lockdown for so long, you run out of things to do. You run out of things to read. You run out of things to watch. I definitely suggest this book. It is the first one in the series. I believe there's going to be 5 or 6 books in this series total. The 4th one is on the way. So right now there are 3 published books in this series. So the first one is The Lies of Locke Lamora. The second one, which I actually do have sitting right here because I started it last night, is Red Seas Under Red Skies. This one is really hard to find for some reason. I don't know why. It took me forever to find it. And it's crazy because I only knew that these books existed. Funny story, because I walked into a Books A Million one day and found The Republic of Thieves, which is the 3rd book in the series, and I didn't know that at the time. I found that book in the $5 bin at Books A Million, and it was like a full hardcover book, and it was huge, and I was like, why is this $5? And I did exactly what you're not supposed to do, and I judged it by its cover. The artwork on the cover for The Republic of Thieves is gorgeous. It has, I think, like 2 people standing on the front in masquerade masks, and there's like really nice artwork behind them. And I thought, this looks interesting, and like I think I read a quick little excerpt or something, and I was like, this is fun. I'm gonna pick this up. It's only $5. Why not? I got more than halfway through that book before realizing that it was the 3rd book in this series. However, that being said, because these books are not entirely linear, it didn't really ruin anything for me. I knew that some characters were dead. Some characters do die in the 1st book, but they still continue to show up throughout the series because of the interludes. So you don't really miss out on anything necessarily. As far as like what I remember from reading the 3rd book, they refer back to some events that happened in the 1st book, and I'm sure the 2nd book too. I just started the 2nd book, so I don't know. But they refer back to events that happened, but you get these interludes in between the main chapters that just go back and explain different things that happened in the childhoods of these characters anyway. So they're not gone. They continue to come back later, previously. they continue to come back in these books, which I also enjoyed that. So it's not like these characters are just wasted. They continue to serve a purpose in these books, even if they are dead. Because when you spend so much time building characters and writing up these characters and making them so real, it kind of sucks when they die, and it's just like, well, that was their sole purpose in this book. I don't really know what else to do with them, and I hate that I spent so much time on them, you know? But in these books, you don't get that. They continue to show up. You get to see all of them all the time. It's great. So yeah, as far as a rating goes, I would give this first book, let's see, like on a scale of 1 to 5, probably like 4.8 out of 5. I mean, no book is perfect, ever. I've never read a book that was like absolutely spot on perfect. That's never gonna happen. I don't give this one a perfect score for that reason, but also because there are a couple of moments in this book where I'm like, man, this scene is carrying on a while. Is all this information necessary? And in most cases it's not, and that happens. I mean, it's whatever. Like, every writer does that, and it doesn't ruin the story in any way, obviously, but there are some instances where I was reading it and I was like, you could have omitted that sentence, or you could have taken that out, and it still would have given me the same impact or same information either way. But that being said, it's still a good read. It's still super fun. There isn't a whole lot of that in here. It's just every now and then there may be a sentence or two where it's just like, did I really need to know that? If you are a fan of pirates, fantasy, magic, and murder, I highly suggest this book. For real. It is. It's so much fun to read. It's satisfying. It's interesting. There's never a dull moment. I can't tell you how many times I would just be sitting on the bed reading and would just start laughing or snickering or gasping about things that were happening, because it's crazy. Some of the stuff that happens in here to these characters, it's just like, are you serious? But it's good. It's really good. I highly suggest it. But yeah, so if you're interested, it's The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I don't know if it comes in hardcover. I mean, I'm sure that it probably does somewhere if you're more interested in that. There's an audiobook version of this available. I kind of want to listen to it and see how the reader pronounces the names, because I don't know how to pronounce them. Yeah, so that was my book review. If you enjoyed this video, want to see me do more book reviews, be sure to click the like button and the subscribe button so that you stay in the loop and see when it is that we upload. And to double make sure that you see that, be sure to click on the bell icon too, so that you get notified when we do upload. We are still on a really weird upload schedule. We're still figuring things out and testing things and coming up with video ideas, so bear with us while we figure that out. Also, if you want to see more of the stuff I do, I have my own YouTube channel. All the links are in the description, so you can check that out, see if there's anything on there that you like. But yeah, see you later.